All right. I welcome each one of you to attend this session. So, the topic is on sustainable menstruation and menstrual hygiene. So, we have Hamsa Iyer joining us from Pune. Um she has been working on the field of sustainability, CSR, and waste management for around 7 years. She is passionate about individual contributions towards greener society, and in, and she also believes in circular economy. So, welcome, Hamsa.
Hi.
So, before we start the presentation, I request uh, each one of you to pin Hamsa's window so that you can see her presentation, and also mute your mic. At the end, we will have question and answer session. That time you can unmute your mic and you can ask any questions if you have. So over to you, Hamsa.
Sure. Uh, Thanks so much, Rajalakshmi. So I'm just going to quickly start. And I want to talk about sustainable menstruation from a perspective of comfort first, health first, and it's a space of understanding, um, awareness of our own body. I'm getting a little bit of echo. If anybody is not muted themselves, can you just check whether you're doing that? Yeah, I think great. Yeah, that sort of took care of the problem. So I want to talk about how this all begins, right? So how was your first period? Was it a shock? How did people around you react to it? And can we just spend a little bit of time to first understand that the periods are not really sort of a place where we associate them with taboo, right? Because I remember my first period, and I got lots of pampering and lots of love from my grandmother and my mom. And I was given a lot of nutritious food that was rich in iron, food that was rich in a lot of supplementary nutrition, which is important, which recognized that my body needed a little bit more love than what it was getting before, because here is where my evolution was sort of taking around. And important thing is that there was so much of joy and happiness around it, right? Whether it was in terms of pampering of food, or whether it was also learning to respect where my boundaries of my body are. It was also a space of trying to understand our body, right? So whether it is in terms of mentally accepting the fact that, listen, the blood that you see in on your underwear is not really something to be worried about, and the physical changes that are coming in are, it's okay, it takes a while, it's fine, let's accept every single bit that is coming from it. And the most important thing is that it is not a taboo subject, that I should not be worried about log kya kahenge, or oh my god, she's bleeding. It isn't about that. It is largely about understanding that this is an inward journey, and that this is something that is really, really okay and normal, right? So I want to jump into the basics first before going around, and I'm sure that a lot of you also have a familiar or a wonderful memory of your first period. And I just want to go through this picture, which all of us have read in our science books. I know that there is something called as the uterus, and then there is something that uh, we have ovaries which sort of release our egg, and the endometrium cavity sort of takes, this is where the bleeding happens, and we see that from the cervix through the vagina, that is where we bleed. And this is something that every doctor will tell you about, a lot of our textbooks talk about. But what we don't sort of contextually realize is that all of this is happening in our perineum area, right? Where there is a clitoris, there is a urethra which takes care of the responsibility for ejecting out urine, and this is the vagina, and that this is our anus, and all of these are very closely interconnected, and that together is a conversation set for menstrual hygiene, because it's not just about our uteruses, it's not just about our vaginas, it's also about how we take care of our perineum. And a lot, if some of you have given birth, you understand that this entire perineum area becomes a very tricky situation, because if you're scared, you'll suddenly realize that um, you can feel your muscles becoming stiff, tight around that area, and that it becomes very difficult. That's your way of expressing that something is not okay, even from your pelvic area. And I wanted to first clarify this, that this is the context of which this session is going to happen. The first and foremost principle for me when it comes to sustainable menstruation is that I should not get into a place where my pelvic floor muscles are scared. If I'm relaxed, then my pelvic floor muscles will show that. If I'm relaxed, I understand that my perineum is in line with what my mind is thinking and the shift that I want to go about. But now, after the basics, let me talk to you about this particular statement, right? The reproductive system of a woman matures over a period of time, which means that for it to evolve in its function, it's taking anywhere between 5 to 6 years to get to its maturity. So, for example, when we start bleeding or when we start menstruating, it's roughly around the age of 11 or 12 and onwards. And by the time our cycle sort of set in, is where we sort of completed our 10th standard, we are probably in our 11th, and things are sort of, getting into a cyclical space of that cyclical space is eventual and gradual. For some people, it sets in very quickly. For some others, it's fine. It takes a little bit more time. And for most of us, we are comfortable with that rhythm after about, say, 3 to 4 years. And that's when we understand that, apart from bleeding, our body is also growing the mammary ducts. We're also understanding that there is an evolution of breasts, and we're okay with the whole wide spectrum in terms of how puberty has sort of unfolded itself for us. And this is another key takeaway, that we're evolving over a period of time, and therefore we must understand what is happening within our reproductive organ. The first thing is that we have 3 openings for peeing, pooping, and of course for intercourse or bleeding, and they're 3 different distinct features. Each of them are related to each other, but they're independent 3 openings. The vagina is a self-cleansing organ, and it knows how to self-balance its pH, right? So this is a great design element of our reproductive organ, and that gets me to tell you that it expands and it can differentiate between intercourse and childbirth, right? So for me, it's like a cool thing. It can adapt really well, and that we know how our body needs to function with respect to different needs and different wants, right? So these are 3 key takeaways when it comes to understanding our reproductive organ. But while I sort of am aware of these 3 things, I'm also aware that kindness to my body comes first. And that from that space, it is my responsibility that I should not be using any harsh chemicals, because it changes the way in which my organ is functioning, and it changes the way in which I respond to what is affecting me. Okay, so at this, I'm going to stop with the basics, and I'm going to jump into a space of let's do a little bit of math. Okay, like enough gyan for the last 2-3 minutes, but I want to ask a question. How many pads do we use in a cycle, and therefore how many pads are we going to use over a period of time, maybe throughout our lifetime of bleeding, between the age of, say, 13 to about 50? How many pads are we going to use over this period of time? And I'm going to request a little bit of participation for this. If any of you can sort of think about that number and share, that would be very great. Let me ask you to do a little bit more math. How much do you bleed on your day of period? Like, how many ml of blood do you think you bleed? And maybe if anybody wants to take a guess. Okay, we have a response called 30 ml. Anyone else? Okay, so and any guesses in terms of how many pads do we use? Okay, no guesses so far. So we're using so we basically have about 420 periods in a lifetime, and because if we continue to use our disposable sanitary waste, we are looking at producing of somewhere about 150 kilos of that in our lifetime. On the question in terms of how much does a woman bleed on a day, it's anywhere between 30 to 40 ml, depending on whether you're a medium to high bleeder, and depending on how much you bleed essentially in a day. Knowing this information, let's go a little ahead and understand some myths which I want to now bust. Disposables are the most hygienic product in the market, right? Because you buy them, you use them, it's a one time thing, and then you don't want to look at that again. But is that really true? What's in our commercial sanitary napkin, right? And I want to also show this disposable pad that I have in my hand, right? So what you're essentially seeing is this butter paper kind of a thing. The back of it is essentially a kind of PUL, not a PUL. It's essentially kind of a plastic. It's very cheap level plastic. You have styrene, you have chloromethane. The bleached thing is essentially all the cotton is like heavily laden with chemicals. You have acetone, which is there, which is very commonly found in our nail polish remover. And then you have something called as chloroethene, which is also used in styrofoam. Essentially, the whole of it put together is one big ball of chemical that we are putting to our very sensitive area, and our vaginas are being exposed to this. So is this really, really hygienic, and is this really, really safe, right? That's my question. And definitely none of these things should be touching our vaginas, because they lead to a lot of other problems. There are enough and more studies where these products sort of continue to contribute to dioxins and all sorts of cancerous impacts on our body. What's the alternative, right? Now we've heard of cloth pads quite a bit, but there's another myth to it that they move around quite a bit and they leak, and that they're really, really uncomfortable. And I'm going to show you a couple of cloth pads that I have. Okay, so the cloth pad option is a great option, except that when our grandmothers, or even for that matter, for some of our mothers who were using it, did two things fundamentally. One was that they were using a piece of cloth that wasn't really well washed, and that was probably not very well maintained over a period of time. The maintenance has to do a little bit in terms of how you dry the pad. Okay, so the first thing is, let's talk about the design part of it. The old pads that we would put would just be folded and they would just be kept on our underwear, and then they would be used. Today's commercial pads come with commercial cloth pads come with these buttons, which you can easily use to fasten on your underwear, so which means that they are not going to move around. The other thing is that they all more or less have a leak proof layer at the back. And what this leak proof layer is made of, it's made of PUL. It is a kind of high grade plastic which has some recyclable value. And on the other side, they have a lot of soft cotton cloth, or some of them have microfibers, or some of them have Cora cotton. So this is a pad that I'm showing. I'm just going to stop projecting my screen with the presentation so that all of you can see what I'm showing here. Can you see me? Yeah. So this is a pad which has a Cora cotton on top, And this pad is something that I have used for the last 6 years. And as you can see, this is the back side of it, which is the PUL layer. And this is the front part of it, which is essentially cotton. Okay. So the great part about these pads is that they are like as good as your commercial disposable sanitary napkins, except that they're a little better. Two reasons why they're better. One is that the hygiene behind these pads is completely in my hand, meaning that how I wash it determines how hygienic it would be. And so, therefore, what I do is, and I do this even when I use a cloth pad during my office travel. Of course, Corona has now put all of that into a different context. Is that I essentially, after I've used it, I would use the titch pins here to just put it together, and I would put this small, so the cloth pad size has now become fundamentally smaller, and I would put this in a bag and I would bring it back home. Once I've brought it back home, I soak it in cold water, and the cold water part here is important. If you soak it in cold water, all the blood that the pad has absorbed will come out, and then within 15-20 minutes of it being soaked in cold water, all you have to do is just press out all the blood, wash it in cold water again, rinse it out, and then it's as good as washing in your normal wash cycle. So you can actually put it in your washing machine, or you can hand wash it with a little bit of mild soap. And then at the end of it, when all the blood has come out, if you're really particular about it, you could use something like Dettol. But don't put the soap, don't soak it in hot water, don't do any of that till the time the blood has actually come out of the pad. And it takes like barely 3 minutes. I've timed this several times, and it barely takes me 3 minutes to take care of my vagina first, the planet second, and the third important aspect in terms of this entire cleaning cycle is that we need to dry it out in the sun. What the sun can do in terms of disinfecting, there's no other replication that we can do at our side. So it's very easy. Today's commercial cloth pads come at great convenience. All I need to do is understand what really goes, what how I need to maintain that hygiene, right? There are prominent brands today. There's Bhumi, there's Soch, Stone Soup, Sugam, Rutu Pads, Ecofem. All of them have great different types of value packs. They have different types of categories in it. You have sizes. You want a bigger pad, you can go around it. There's even some period panties that you can use today, and that's really great because today the cloth pad market is sort of like really opened up very well. Let me talk a little bit more. I did address this part. Is it really hygienic? I'm going to repeat. You need to soak it in cold water for about 30 minutes, mild, scrub it softly, and then you need to dry it in that natural sunlight. The 3-step bit to maintain your cloth pad will make sure that they're far more hygienic than what you have. The best part is if you know a little bit of stitching, you can actually replicate some of these as well. You can just get a size from any of these commercial brands, and then you could go about to stitch it along with some stitch pins, and you could customize it to your size as well. So that's the greatest advantage about cloth pad. But the key to this is drying it in sunlight, and I think without that, the hygiene is a real problem. Don't feel that having a cloth pad out will involve a lot of questions from people at home. Openly use that opportunity to openly talk about menstruation and how it is the norm of life with people around, and get them to understand that this is a natural thing that's happening with you, and it's happening to a lot of people. So it's not like something that's an off thing that's happening with you. So next myth, right? So the other sustainable option that a lot of people talk about is that of a menstrual cup. And let me show you how small the cup is, right? And this is what the cup looks like. So for a lot of people, they wonder whether the menstrual cup is, it doesn't, I mean, really, can it actually go inside? That's some of the questions that you have. For me, I'd like to share my personal journey here. When I first got the cup, I bought it and I sat by it for about 2 months and said, no, this is definitely not going inside. But honestly speaking, when I did research a little bit about the cups, It's absolutely safe. It's made of medical grade silicone. The key about both the cloth pad and the menstrual cup is that they're collecting the blood. So the cup, at least, it's definitely collecting it. The pad absorbs it very comfortably, and because it's going in, sitting inside your vagina, it's actually sitting in because it forms a seal. And I'm going to show you in terms of how can you use this cup, right? You need to fold the cup like this, make the opening of it small, and then you need to insert it inside your vagina where it opens out and it forms a seal inside. So if you look at this menstrual cup, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen just to show this to you a little bit better, is that when you use the cup, right, you have to reduce it by its size. So this is called the push down labia fold, and essentially you're reducing the cup's size. This is a uterus model. So what you're doing is you're putting the cup inside and it opens up to form a seal. So what's happening is that your cup is sitting inside and you don't get any squeaky, you don't get to feel any wetness in your undergarment when you're doing this. And the great part about it is that you need to change this cup maybe once in 12 to 14 hours. And that's always something that all of us really like, right? Stop making those washroom breaks, especially for changing the pad. You don't have to hide anything. You don't have to worry about, I don't want to draw attention about it. So it's very simple. The what forms the vacuum in the cup are these small holes. There are 4 holes. Every commercial cup today has that. And that's essentially what is forming the vacuum, right? So if you have to if you're going to have to remove the cup, then you will have to put in your fingers. First of all, apply a little bit of pressure on your pelvic area, the way you would apply pressure for to go pass stools, and then the cup comes down a bit, and then break the seal with your hand and remove it, right? So that's how you remove a cup. You empty it, you wash it, and then you insert it back again, the way I described before. So I'm going to repeat it again. Push down the cup, reduce the diameter, insert it in your vagina, and let the cup form the suction. And that's it. It needs barely 150 ml of water to be cleaned and put inside. It doesn't need sterilization in between, in terms of once I remove it, to empty it and then I put it back. Just a good rinse with water is great, and it takes care of it very well. And there are several brands of menstrual cups here, right? So you have, this is Stone Soup's cup, which has these rims here for you to be able to remove it and to identify that the cup has come down. This is the Nari Yari cup. This is the She cup. Some cups have like a small stem or a knob, which is completely normal. Great for some people who would like to find or hold on to something for you to be able to break the suction and bring it out, and it works very well. And the great thing about the menstrual cup is that they've been around for the last 70 years. And I can tell you that a lot of women who do use the menstrual cup find it very convenient and easy to use. Okay. Which menstrual cup should you buy, right? There are so many of them. There's a one with a loop, there are stemless ones, there are the ones with knobs, there are one with short stems. What works for you? This takes a little bit of understanding. For me, when I bought my She cup, this is my She cup that I bought about 7 years ago, and it's still in good condition. It's still very well used. It is sterilized maybe once in 2-3 months. And I keep it in sunlight for about 10-15 minutes after thoroughly washing it, and that is good enough for it to be there. Remember the basics. The vagina is a self-cleansing organ. You don't need to give it extremely pristine stuff, but you need to make sure that whatever you're using doesn't have any harsh chemicals attached to it. And because all of these menstrual cups are made with medical grade silicone, it works very well in terms of comfort. So the cup is so big. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking definitely nahi jayega, and it won't go with copper tea. I just want to say that if you have given birth, your baby is 10 centimeters, and this is all of 4 centimeters in diameter. So you don't need to worry. Again, go back to the basics, right? The vagina contracts and expands the way it needs to. This works very well. It will not hurt you because of the nature of silicone. It's very soft. It molds very well, and it will sit in your cervix the way it is comfortable, and it will not cause any discomfort. For all of you who are thinking, will this work with the copper tea? Yes, it definitely will. This is what it looks like. You'll just need to be a little careful in terms of the thread that hangs out, but it takes like maybe 1 or 2 cycles to be comfortable with. For me, this was a breeze. I could absolutely go around with it using right from the first cycle. I used a couple of cloth pads just as backup because I kept wondering whether it will cause any leaks, but nothing of that sort happened, and it was very, very comfortable. But here's another thing, right? Like, cost is an important aspect of our livelihood, and disposables do seem cheaper. But here's a simple cost analysis, right? The disposable sanitary pad costs you 8 rupees per piece, which you're never going to see again. It's a single use thing. The cloth pad set, it ranges between 300 rupees to about 1800, depending on how much and what kind of material you're investing in. And you can use it about 75 times. My cloth pads haven't given up on me despite having me used it for about 7 years now. One of it is which is now showing signs of wear and tear, and I'm going to replace it with another one. The menstrual cup costs you anywhere between 650 to 1500. The average price here taken is about 1000 rupees. And the only time the cup goes out of use is when it loses its elasticity here, or if your vaginal size has increased. So if this part has increased, then you need to invest in a bigger cup, because you need something that is far more elastic. And there are some cups that give the cup in 2 sizes, so that should be okay. And think about it, right? You may need about 3 to 4 of them if you're using it over a period of 30 years, if something is wrong with that cup. Otherwise, you need one cup which really last you long. So clearly, reusables are definitely cheaper, and in terms of hygiene, they're a great value, right? There are so many brands today. Where can I see multiple brands and compare? I run a small enterprise called as Eco Products India, and you can check some of these products out. I do have some slides in terms of what the different brands and how much do they cost. But let me take in questions first, and then we can go through some of the products here.
So how do you determine the size of the cup?
So all cups come in a standard size. There's very little variation in that. So I'm going to show you, this is the Nariyari cup and this is the She cup. So you see that they're in the same size. Yeah. This is the Stone Soup cup and this is the She cup. So the Stone Soup cup is slightly smaller, but that's primarily because of this knob extension, right? So this is a standard size. You don't have to worry in terms of the length of the cup. What you need to be careful about is the diameter of the cup, right? So for example, if you have given birth, you may need a cup that's slightly broader. But if you've had a C-section, which means that your uterus would have contracted back to its original size, and there's a huge possibility that you haven't lost the elasticity within, you will need a standard cup. And there are loads of options that are available, and you can choose whichever one you are comfortable from that. Okay, somebody has asked here saying, is there a chance of spill during removal? For the first couple of times that you do get this hang of, using it and removing it, there is
So,
a
but
little
it does
chance.
take several.
Sorry, I think I lost you. If you could just repeat.
Does it take several times to get the right size? I mean, if I buy one and it's not fitting for me, would it take like a little time to buy another size? Is that a
Not
possibility?
really. Not really. I mean, there are very few people who do buy more than 1 or 2 cups. Like I said, I know of a friend who needed to buy a slightly larger cup because the old one was leaking slightly. And then she figured out that her elasticity had increased a bit and I mean decreased a bit, and therefore she needed one which had bigger diameter. But most cups will fit. They are designed in such a way that they should fit women across different lengths and different widths. So you don't need to worry too much about it. Think about when you're buying, right? You need to think about 2 3 things. Are you okay with the stem here? Are you okay with the knob? Do you think mentally you will be able to find this, or would you want something without a knob? I have used both of them. I'm about to use this. I'm actually waiting for my period to try this one out from Nadiari, and it both work very well for me. I'm okay with this much of a knob, but I have tried a cup which had like a stem, and that didn't work for me. And the only way I could make it work is I just cut the stem off, and it worked perfectly fine after that, right? So it takes a little bit of understanding of what will work well for you, and then accordingly figure that out. Start with any cup that you feel this is okay. Like, do you want this, do you not want the stem, or do you want a little bit of a knob? And you take that decision at your end.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So here is this question: is there a chance of spill during removal? Yeah, a little bit. At least when I started when I started using it, it took me about 2 cycles to understand how to remove it effectively without spilling over, right? And each person's cervix and vagina is slightly different. Some people have a very straight vagina, some have a slightly curved vagina. So it takes a while to get used to understanding how can you do things efficiently. And like all good things that we do, only with practice do we perfect it. So that rule applies for the menstrual cup as well. I had a vaginal delivery. How to find the diameter of the cup? Does it differ for C-section? Like I said, I've had a C-section too, so I have, my cup size hasn't changed. I continue to use the same cup that I bought 7 years ago, and there's no problem. The diameter of the cup is easily visible. This is about 4 centimeters at max, 3.7, 3.8 diameters. Don't worry too much of whether your cervix will expand so much. Your cervix is designed, your vagina is designed by nature to accommodate, right? We're all okay when we have intercourse and there's no problem. So we shouldn't worry about it from this perspective. Just make sure that you feel comfortable in terms of inserting this. And I hope I answered that question, Kartika. Okay, Mitra's green feet. Which design do you prefer? One is conical and one is the cylindrical one. Honestly, whichever one I get, I'm okay with both, because both of them are slightly semi-hard. They're not super soft. There are about, I mean, if this had been like a face-to-face session, I would have sort of told you that there are, I would have let you experience how does the menstrual cup actually feel in your hand. So this is a slightly semi-hard cup. This is a very hard cup. Yeah, maybe I can just try. So notice how quickly I'm able to do this, and this is taking a little bit more time, right, to go inside. So if you're super active, you do yoga, you're doing a lot of heavy lifting, you're into running, you're very athletic, then I would suggest use a hard cup. The reason for this is that your cervix accommodation to things and to create that vacuum, for the cup to create a vacuum inside, you will need a slightly harder cup. That's just how it is, how it works. In terms of conical or cylindrical, doesn't make any difference. You figure out what works for you. Like I said, the key basic to this is to understand, you want something here to feel, to pull it out, or do you not want anything? So that should be your way to decide. Both work perfectly well for me, and that's actually the beauty. You've got multiple designs that can accommodate this particular feature. I hope I answered that one. What is the recommended age to start using the cup? Teens. Um, I want to go back to the basics here a bit, right? We evolve, our bodies evolve over a period of time. Um, Also understand that intercourse or the cup are talking about something that is going inside our vaginas. And if this is not a pleasant thing, there is always going to be fear around this, and our pelvic area will always be worried about anything that's happening there, whether it's childbirth, whether it's intercourse, or whether it's using a menstrual cup. Allow the teenager to be okay, let them settle in terms of understanding their body. Let's not rush into getting into this space of, this cup is not going to create any trash, just use it. Get them to feel comfortable about their bodies by starting them on off cloth pads, and then you realize that the beauty of getting to know your body through that cloth pad is amazing. And then shift them to a cup when they're okay. I hope that answered your question, Hesha. And I hope I pronounced that right. Does it affect the flow? The menstrual cup? Rajalakshmi, is that what you're asking? Okay, so here's the thing, right? Because you're collecting that blood, because the cup is collecting the blood, you don't feel wetness on your underwear, right? However, because it's collecting blood, you don't sort of get into this space of, oh my God, I'm bleeding so much. It collects and it takes care of it. There are people who say that, my flow has reduced, but it's also perception, because you no longer feel the wetness in the panty, and so therefore there is this perceived thing that it has reduced my flow. A lot of women also say that, they don't experience as much cramps as they used to before. In some cases it's true, and I'll explain this a bit. So if there's something flowing from here and it's reaching your, you can feel it on the lips of your vagina, you obviously feel more wet, right? Versus when you don't feel that wetness, it's obvious for you to think that, hey, this is squeaky clean. It no longer, it has reduced down. Similarly, for the cramps part of it, because it's collecting and that you don't feel this journey of that blood that's going down, you're also likely to feel that, it's okay. Maybe it has actually reduced because the cup is doing, but what the cup is actually doing is just collecting the blood. And in that process, a lot of things that we were experiencing when we were using a disposable pad, or maybe when we were using a cloth pad, you don't feel that with the cup. So therefore, it sort of comes across as a miracle menstrual hygiene product. But in reality, both options are great. Please think again back in terms of what is great for your vagina, what really works well for you. Are you comfortable with this? Are you not comfortable with this? That is the key about that. So I hope I answered that question too. Okay, here's another question. Will there be difficulty in removing the cup? Any experience of your customers finding it difficult to remove it or inability to remove it? Okay, so there are incidences where people get very worked up and afraid that it's not coming, but it's more so to do with how we react and respond to something being stuck. If you panic, your pelvic floor muscles are going to go back and become stiff, which means that you get hyper and you're trying to pull the cup out. You should not pull the cup out. If you're feeling that, you're in a panicky mood, I would recommend to laugh out loud. Okay, just crack a joke. Think about the funniest moment you had in the week and just laugh, because that will relax your pelvic muscle. The minute your pelvic muscle is relaxed, you will realize that you can very easily remove the cup. All you need to do is the cup will start coming down, give it a little bit of pressure on your abdomen, and then break the vacuum so your cup essentially looks like this, and then just remove it. Do not remove it without having broken the suction. Only then do customers find it difficult to remove. I actually had a friend who bought a menstrual cup along with me, and I managed to do it really well, and she was stuck. So she did have to go to the gynecologist,
and she had the gynecologist remove it for her. But the key to it is that you be calm, and then the cup will come down on its own. Don't worry so much in terms of, this is very difficult. It's not difficult. It takes a little bit of time. Be kind to yourself, and you will find very soon that the cup has come down and you will be able to remove it. Is it to be inserted completely, and which is recommendable, cloth pad or cup? So I have to pick a favorite right now. You have to insert this completely inside your vagina, right? And it sits there. You cannot leave it like this. You will not be able to function because the vacuum will not be formed. It will just come off. When you insert it, I'm going to repeat again. You reduce the diameter. This is a push down fold. This is what the cup looks like. You are inserting this in your vagina this way. Yeah, and that's it. The cup opens up, forms a vacuum, and it sits inside. Which one is recommendable? I think for me, I started with the cloth pad and I slowly worked up my courage to buy the cup. That was 7 years ago. But I also made the choice to shift to a cup because I was very aware of my body in terms of how to make that switch. And both of them are very easy to use, provided you have the mindset for it. If you feel like you want to move away from disposable pads and not ready for the cup, shift to a cloth pad, and you'll see fundamentally the difference and the way in which your bleeding has changed. So that works very well. Hope I answered that question of yours, Lavanya. Okay, sure. I'm just going to take a water break. Pelvic muscles versus cup, do's and don'ts. Okay. Keep yourself relaxed when you are using. I think a lot of us know about Kegels, and Kegels is a great exercise to understand the contractions of your muscles. You can just breathe in and breathe out. If you haven't heard of this, just look it up. You can do it at any point of time, and it's supposed to be great way for relaxing your pelvic muscles and giving them a little bit of work. What you need to do is, see, the key of it is to keep your pelvic muscle a lot comfortable. So if you are tensed and tired, the cup will not even go inside. If you keep it calm, comfortable, then it goes inside without any hassle. If you repeatedly try to do it when you are not comfortable, you will definitely feel sore after a point of time. And I would say that if it is not working in the first 2 times, I would say take a break, come back, maybe try after another 3 or 4 hours, and then go about with it. With respect to pulling out, I think I've already said, don't be scared, don't be too frightened. If you feel like you need to prepare yourself for it, I would just say squat like you would on an Indian toilet, and you would be able to do this much easier and much better. You'll be able to insert the cup much faster. Okay, I think I just answered Priya's question. Is there any posture you would recommend for an easy insertion? Just squat. Just squat on both your legs. Spread yourself a little wide and then try to insert it. It's very easy after that. Works very well. It also works well for people who sit on the Western toilet, and that works fine too. It's just that you have to get comfortable in which position is doable. For me, I would prefer the toilet position, Indian toilet position, any day, because it's much faster, it's more hassle free, and that's also coming from my space of comfort. I empty the cup twice. I'm just answering Mitra's question in terms of, do we understand or feel when it's time to empty the cup, or should I go by time? So it's both. For me, I understand, I correlate the time with respect to when I need to empty the cup. For example, I know that by about 12 hours or so, I need to definitely empty my cup, even on a day that I bleed very heavily, which is likely on my second day. Also, for some people, you will feel that the cup is full because you can start sensing a little bit of wetness. For others, it's also when the cup is overflowing. For some people, it overflows because there's a sudden blood clot that's coming in, and then it has gone into your underwear. So that's one way of knowing that it's there. But anywhere between 8 to 12 hours, depending on how you bleed, you would definitely know that you need to empty the cup. PCOS and cups and clot pads. Okay, so it's not like you need a separate thing for this. If you suffer from PCOS, you can use cups and clot pads. If you have a lot of bleeding, cups will definitely help you. You just need to frequently change it. If you have very little flow, try starting with the cloth pad. I think a lot of people who do have PCOS come from a space where they haven't understood your vaginas very well. Take your time to understand that PCOS are also connected to how we live our lives. There is a lot of conversation around lifestyle around this. Speak to your gynecologist, specifically if you feel that you're bleeding too low and whether you need to use a cup. It'll be a customized opinion for those who sort of need assistance in that space. Okay, any more questions? When should we not use cups? There's not really like a hard rule when you shouldn't use a cup. You can use a cup pretty much every time you bleed. However, there is one small thing I feel that makes a difference. So we are all prone to a couple of infections once in a while. If you use a cup when you're having an infection, please make sure that you're sterilizing the cup after use, and please make sure that you leave it in the sun for about 10 minutes, and that should take care of it. If you're not comfortable, if you're very itchy, you're not comfortable with inserting something, don't use the cup. The minute your comfort with the cup increases, you automatically can estimate when you should and when you shouldn't use the cup. And you'll know that I don't want to do this. So for example, when I bled for the first time after my delivery, my first month with the cup was very comfortable. Like I had no problem, and there I was wondering, wow, I can finally go back to bleeding on my menstrual cup again. But the second cycle was like a complete shock for me, because my body just said, I don't want to use a cup. Like nothing goes inside. I want the comfort of a cloth pad. But that comes with awareness, that comes with having used the cup and the cloth pad for about 5-7 years. And I'm asking all of you that think about your body's comfort first, and then figure out which option works best for you. Sorry, Rajlakshmi, I didn't understand. For a regular cup user?
Say if I'm using cups for my regular cycle, regular menstrual cycle, so I think you have addressed, because we ourselves come to know that we are not comfortable with the cup. So I think you addressed my question.
Sure.
Hamsa,
Yeah.
Can we talk more about cloth pads, because
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Like for a heavy flow, will it be comfortable? Like they have to change often, and what is there any size available, XL or H pad?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a normal pad. This is a pad that I normally use on the low flow days, which is like towards the end of my cycle. There's also a companies also produce something called as the night pad, because that's when a lot of us experience significantly more bleeding. I also think it's because we're asleep, we don't want to sort of go and change more, so therefore the flow and the absorbency that we need at night is significantly higher. And there are bigger pad size, there are a lot of them. Every brand today has a day pad, night pad, a full cycle kit. And I think if you're starting off, just buy a full cycle kit and see what works. If you want to experiment a bit and figure out, I would recommend buying at least 1 day pad and 2 night pads, because that sort of takes care of your large flow days and that keeps you comfortable. So the sizes, the beauty is that every brand has like amazing prints and they're really beautiful. Like there's no way going back to a disposable pad after you've used a cloth pad. These are pads that I have used. This one is cut so that I can show you what's on the inside, right? So this is a microfiber, which obviously means that it has more absorbency. And they're all great to use. You figure out, if you're a heavy bleeder, you may need a little bit more, you may need pads that are slightly bigger. If not, you can definitely understand from this comparison which one is bigger, which one is smaller, and which one is the smallest. Did that help in some sense to understand? Yes, so you can soak it overnight and wash. It is absolutely fine, but I would recommend one additional step here is that rinse it out once and then soak it again. You will find that it's slightly more efficient, because whatever little blood is stuck inside the different pockets, that also comes out over a period of time. But it's not like a compulsory rule. I just realized that it's my way of working efficiently. In fact, when I come back from work with pads that are like this, that are being soaked inside, I just undo this button and they lie soaking in. At the end of my bath, I quickly change the water. I see how much of our blood is coming out. And at the end of the day, after I finished all my chores, maybe cleaning the kitchen, making sure that next day routine is set on time, I give it a quick rinse and put it into my machine's dryer so that, the pads dry out quickly. Especially in the rainy season, that works very well. Lavanya, is your question about cloth pads or about the menstrual cup? Cloth pad. Okay. So understand that if your vagina is here and you put the cloth pad here, you're bleeding in a particular point. Okay. But with the cloth pad, what is likely to happen is, if the blood is trickling down and is spreading all over, then the length is an issue. Normally, most of us, and I think we all understand the pattern, is that the pad fills up across on the first 2 days, and then towards the end of the cycle, it's accumulating at one point. So essentially what we're doing, what we're understanding is the flow and the peak of the bleeding. If you use like a bigger pad in the start of your cycle, that really helps because it can collect more blood. Definitely, it will also prevent the leaking that will happen. But towards the end of your cycle, generally we need a very small cloth pad, and that takes care of it. Yes, commercial pads are lengthy because it's like an all size, one size fits all, right? Whereas with the cloth pads that are available today, you don't get into that. You use as much as you need. It's not about somebody's greed. So that's the fundamental difference. But that being said, some people do bleed consistently that much through the cycle. And for those people, they definitely prefer to have long pads. So again, each person's cycle is different. And you should decide for yourself what works very well. You're welcome. Should we use liners? Is this related to menstrual hygiene, or is this related to specifically while we are bleeding? Menstrual hygiene, yeah. So a lot of women experience partial incontinence, or some people have a little bit of urine that stays back or that comes in after they wear their underwear. And I think one particular way to avoid that is to use a small panty liner kind of a thing, because it absorbs everything. You can just wash it just like you do with your underwear. Make sure that it's clean once, and then you can add it to your wash cycle, and that takes care of most of the problems. By doing this, what we're essentially doing is we're keeping the perineum area clean. We're collecting it in a place, and we're making sure that you're not sitting in wetness through the day. And if you experience any of this, then cloth panty liners are a great alternative. One is that you're not drying your vagina out, right? And that's a huge problem with disposable pads. that it dries your vagina out completely and you're itching and you feel all those rashes. You will not experience that with a cloth pad. If you are experiencing something like that with a cloth pad, you know you can fix it. You need to sun dry it, you need to make sure that it's washed properly, and the problem will go away very quickly. So if you're experiencing extreme wetness, please use liners or cloth pads. Both work very well. Can you recommend any company for cloth pads? So I do have a couple of products on my website, and I'd just like to show some of that because I can see that we're getting to this place. So these are some menstrual cups that are available. Sorry. This is the Soch cup. That's the Stone Soup menstrual pink cup. This is the teal or blue cup, and you can see some of the prices that are there. This is the Nari Yari cup. This is the Rutu cup. These are some cloth pads. They come in different sizes. This is a medium. This is an L. That's an XL on the right. This is the full cycle kit that I was talking about. There are some brands that also like to give you a small clutch bag along with it so that you can bring it back home. Some more cloth pads from Bhumi, and the cost varies between 1425 to 1975. If you'd like to place any of your orders immediately, I'm very happy to take them, and you can just scan this through Google Pay and send that across. You can leave me a message as well. I'm just going to go back to some options that you have here. These are the pads from Bhumi. This has Bhumi, Soch and Stone Soup, right to left. This is the Bhumi pads, pack of 3 in different sizes, medium, L and XL. This is the menstrual cups again. And of course, if you'd still like to check any of those pads out, more details on other options that you have, I will just very quickly share a link here and you can buy from there. Should we consider cervical length while buying a menstrual cup? Okay, so your cervix can be measured with your index finger. Your cervix is essentially this point, right? This point that you see here, this is your cervix. So if you're putting in your finger and you're this big, almost every pad will fit you, which means that notice the frets along here. There are some women who have a low cervix, which means that you will hit your cervix within this reach. And there are cups that have a smaller length. If you do need a specific one, we reach out to that. We don't list it on our website, but we are very happy to source it for you and give it to you. We can get on a one-on-one conversation on that. Those who have most women have it in these 2 frets to 3 frets, right? And so the cup fits in very well. So you don't need to worry about that. Your vagina sort of expands and allows the cup to sit in between. I've left in a number and an email ID that you can get in touch with. We're very happy to connect with you one-on-one and check on what is your requirement and what are some more questions. So feel free to ping on that. Yeah. So does it get lost? No, this is a dead end. Your uterus has a dead end. Nothing that you put inside is going to go up your stomach and come out of your esophagus. Nothing like that is going to happen. It's going to sit there. It's going to collect your blood, and it's going to keep you comfortable. Please, let's accept that first. What are tampons? Okay, so tampons are essentially, let me just uh, show you what are tampons. So a tampon is essentially a cylindrical thing that sits. I've just put in about, I've just shared that on the screen. So what you see is, let me just make it a little bigger. So this thing with the string is what is a tampon. It works very similar to a menstrual cup. You can insert it inside, and there's a small string that comes out at the vaginal opening, which you can tug for the tampon to come down. Essentially what happens is it collects blood, and as it gets heavier it shifts down, so therefore you know that you have to remove it. But it's got the same toxins and dioxins that any other disposable sanitary hygiene product that has today. Something about toxic shock syndrome. So this is something that is experienced by a lot of people who use tampons. It's a little complicated to understand this, but let me simplify it. If you have something here and it stays there for a long period of time and it has a lot of other harmful chemicals, your body experiences a slight shock, and that's called toxic shock syndrome. It is because of the toxic chemicals that are there. You are not likely to experience that if you use a cup. And you can talk a little bit more about your gynecologist. She'll be able to explain it with your anatomy a little better. I'm not really qualified to say that, but I do know that there have been plenty of research around the safety of menstrual cups, and they definitely do not have that, primarily because they're medical grade silicone. It's essentially the same material that most nipples have for feeding bottles, so you don't need to worry about any chemicals entering your body. Sure. So if any of you would like to just have a look at the products again, I would like to very quickly take you through that. And like a lot of good things, technology is clearly not working, so it's fine. So if you have any more questions, very happy to take them. Yeah, please, I will send that across to you, Rajlakshmi, and you can just forward it to others. Not a problem. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great to speak to all of you. And do reach out to me if you would like to discuss more.
Thank you so much, Hamsa. It was really a great session.
Sure.
I'm sure it will help everyone to choose the right product for them.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Bye.